Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Marvin, you love the idea of owning rental properties, but you've got a pretty demanding job and you don't have time to be all that involved with the day-to-day operations of your properties. How are you doing it?
I rely a lot on property managers to look at the numbers, look at the statistics, and I don't like buying properties that I have to fix up a lot. So I like to buy properties that are pretty much ready to go and ready to be occupied. And I rely on the property managers to do the rest as long as it's giving me positive cash flow and it's in a good neighborhood.
Hiring a property manager sounds like it was the right decision for Marvin, but property managers aren't free. They perform a valuable service and they should be compensated for it. But after Marvin pays his mortgages, any expenses on the property, and as property manager, is there money left over for him? And that's what we're going to find out today. We're going to take a look at Marvin's properties. We're going to figure out what his actual expenses are, how much he's paying his managers, and see what his actual profit is. Joining us on the show today from St. Louis is Marvin Mitchell. We'll take a really quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Marvin. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property, and when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
Marvin, you seem to really love investing in real estate. Why do you love rental properties?
You know, Dan, it's because it's a real asset. It's a real asset. I've always wanted to invest in real estate. I studied a lot of wealthy individuals, and they all told me real estate was the place to be. And of course, me being a financial advisor, I understand the tax benefits and the potential depreciation. So real estate was something that I know if the market were to crash, I still have that asset at least.
Now, you've got a couple of different types of properties, and I want to kind of walk through exactly what you've bought as you built out your portfolio. But can you just tell us big picture what your portfolio looks like?
Sure. I do have several. I have single family. I have mixed use multifamily, with some's commercial, some's not. I have regular multifamily, and I do an Airbnb, a single property Airbnb, and then I have a mansion actually in Atlanta that's an Airbnb, and I also do multifamily apartments where I have over 420 units or so of doors for my multifamily apartments.
Now, we've had some people on the podcast that think that to be successful with rental properties, you have to be really hands-on and you have to be involved in the day-to-day. But you've really proven that that's not really true, right?
So unfortunately for myself, I don't know how to use a hammer and nails. I can't. I barely know how to change a spare tire on a vehicle. So I would be the worst person in the world to have to fix anything or have to. So yeah. I rely on my property managers and maintenance for everything.
So like say in a typical month, how much time would you say you spend on your rental properties?
Sometimes I feel like not enough. I'm only spending about maybe in a month, 3 to 4 hours or so.
Okay. Yeah. You know, it's like you think about it. I mean, you're the highest and best use of your time is your business. You know, the rentals are going to manage themselves. Like you can probably outsource that cheaper than you could do it yourself. Right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sure, I give up some of the cash flow, but if it took me out of my business, I would literally be losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't think that the real estate could make up for the hundreds of thousands of dollars I would lose if I attempted to do it myself. Mm-hmm. Plus, it would frustrate me because I don't know how.
Right, right. So let's talk about what you've bought. So So the first thing I want to ask you about is buying properties out of state. So you've bought
Yes.
properties that you haven't actually seen. Tell me about how you did this.
Yeah, so I have a property, a couple of properties actually in Ohio. I've never seen them. I've never touched them. I don't know the tenants. I don't know anything about the property. All I know is that it cash flows and I trust the property managers. And it's been pretty good because the tenants, haven't left. And anyway, I found these properties and they had the numbers. They analyzed the numbers. They said it comes with a property manager. It comes with tenants. It's already move-in ready. And they broke down the numbers and it showed the profitability. And all I had to do was buy the properties. Well, when I bought one property, the owner of the property contacted me and said, actually, I have two. Would you mind buying another one and taking it off my hands because I'm moving out of state and I don't want to deal with it? And I was like, okay. So he showed me the numbers on that one. It all looked great. And it was wonderful because he said that I have a property management team. They'll just continue to take over. They know exactly who I look for in tenants. All you have to do is just cover the mortgage when you get your loan. And I was like, okay, great. So I got those two, and those have probably been two of my best investments, although I've never seen the property.
Now, a lot of times I've found that the neighborhood is sometimes more important than the property.
Yes.
Did you have a good feel for what the neighborhood was like?
I did. So he mentioned to me the neighborhoods. He said it was a really good area. I think LeBron James built his school not too far from the area. He said it was a growing neighborhood, and it's proven to be true because since I bought this property, I've had several people contact me in attempts to buy it, offering me more than what I paid for the property.
And everything's been working out as far as renting the property out. Like the properties have been profitable.
Yeah, we had one person move out, and it was literally it was filled probably within 2 weeks.
Well, let's take a look at some numbers here and see
Sure.
what this looks like. So, say for one of the properties, can you tell us what you paid for it?
Yeah, so one of the properties in Ohio, I call it Clifton. We paid $205,000, and I got a loan, and that loan was funded at $154,000. So thankfully I had the cash. This one rents for $1,775.
Okay, and then your mortgage payment, how much is that?
The mortgage payment is $947.
Okay, so that's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's
Correct.
Everything. Okay, and then
That's everything combined.
Okay.
That was escrow combined.
And then what is your property manager charge?
Property manager on this one charges 10% of the mortgage. Of the rent. So that comes out to be $177.
Okay. Now for repairs and vacancy, how do you budget for that?
For this one, I only budget 5%. That was their recommendation, so I just followed their recommendation. So $177 for repairs and expense as well.
Okay, so that's your vacancy, that's your repairs. How has that worked out? Because 5% sounds like that could be a little on the low side. But if a property is rehabbed, that could work out. So how has that worked out for you?
It's so funny because it's worked out amazing. I probably haven't even spent that much on repairs and maintenance so far. It's been almost a year now.
Okay.
And I haven't spent that much at all. I think it's funny, the property managers, people who I've never met in an entirely different state, has turned out to be the best property managers I've ever had.
All right. So after everything, after your mortgage payment, your property management, setting money aside for repairs and vacancy, sounds like you're making about $475 a month.
Yes, sir. On that one property.
And then, so what are you doing with that money? Like, do you put that aside to continue to invest, or do you live on that money?
No, I don't live on any of my rental money. I'm sitting it in a side account and just allowing it to build up in a side account. If it gets high enough, I might invest it, but I'm not spending that money whatsoever. I'm looking at that as a seed for future investment opportunities.
Let's talk about some of the other properties that you bought closer to home. So you're buying like mixed use properties. Tell me what these are like.
So I bought one. I'll call it Lackland. This mixed use property, I got a sweet deal on it. It was actually at least 300 worth at least 325,000. I think it was worth more, but I think Zillow showed it at 325. I know you don't really rely on Zillow, but I found it actually just on a Facebook group. So I was on a Facebook group and someone was posted that they were selling the property, and it was like literally right around the corner from my office. So I drove and I met the owner of the property, and essentially, he initially wanted to sell it to me for the high price, and I said yes. I was going to buy it for I think he was selling it for 325, and I said yes. And I told him I was going to get a loan and I was going to pay the down payment, and he said, "Well, can you pay for it in cash?" And I said, "In cash?" Now I just so happened to, have the cash, enough cash. So I said, "If I pay for it in cash, how much lower are you willing to go?" So we got all the way down to $275,000.
Wow.
And the crazy thing about that is I checked with the bank, with one of my banks, and they said that they would be willing to refinance that and turn it into a loan after only about a month. There was no seasoning. So I went ahead and paid for the 275,000 with cash. And then later on, I went to the bank and I got a loan on that same property. So it turned out to be the exact same thing, but thankfully I had the cash because I got about 50 grand off.
Yeah, I mean that's really the secret to working deals, is just finding out what's important to the seller. Do you have any idea why he wanted cash?
Yes, he was in a situation where he was in the process of getting a divorce, and he wanted this situation to be over sooner rather than later. He told me that he literally, spilled the beans to me. He told me that the person was getting on his nerves. He was tired of dealing with this. He just wanted to be over. He didn't want to wait. So we had a drink at the bar. It's funny because the mixed use property it's a bar on the first floor. So we ended up just talking and sitting at the bar having the conversation, and that's when he basically brought it all to me. And then he told me to hold on, got on the phone with his ex-wife, and now ex-wife, and got the agreement, and the deal was done.
Wow. Okay, so tell me about the property. So the bar is on the first floor, and then are there apartments upstairs?
Yes. So there's a bar that's actually a popular bar on the first floor, and then there's two units upstairs. There's a smaller unit and a larger unit. The smaller unit rents out for $900. The larger unit rents out for $1,500. And then the bar rents out for $2,300. So for a total of $4,700 of total rent.
And how is the condition of the property when you bought it?
Great question. So he made it sound really good. Like there was no problems. Everything was looking great. And of course, he did not want me to get an inspection, which is another reason why he wanted to just pay cash and get out of it. Well, when I bought the property, I found out that there were a lot of problems that he didn't tell me about. The driveway needed to be dealt with. I had to pay a lot of money to get that done. There was a situation where the electrical units were not separated properly. The air units weren't separated properly. I had to pay for a floor to get repaired. I mean, there were a lot of repairs that I would have caught with the inspection. But I got lucky on this particular situation because the cash flow was so good that even though I had one of the units, when a person moved out, it was unlivable because the tub wasn't working correctly. So I literally had to pay, I think, a total of about $40,000.
Wow.
The largest check that I struck at one time was $26,000 to get all of these situations fixed. But even if you do the math on that, like, $4,700 is the net rent. My payment is only $1,372. So if you look at what I'm paying for that, the net cash flow on that is amazing. In addition to that, I was profitable even though I did not have a larger unit occupied. But now that it's occupied, the cash flow on that is just going to be crazy.
Yeah. All right. So $4,700 a month in rent. Your payment is $1,372, and that includes everything: your taxes and insurance.
Yes, that includes everything.
Okay. All right, and then I assume you've got a property manager for that too.
Yes, I do have a property manager. Now, this property manager only takes 8%.
Now, was
8%.
was it hard to find a property manager that would manage residential and also a bar?
No, I think maybe he didn't know it first. I mean, I guess I just hired him to do it, and he said if I give him all of my St. Louis properties, he would give me 8% instead of 10%, and there was never any question about it.
Okay. All right. So he takes 8%. So that's like 376.
376, correct.
And then for repairs and vacancy, how do you budget for that?
Well, I budget 10%. For actually 20%, 10% for both because of the type of unit it is. So that comes out to be 752.
But, I guess when we look at doing 10% or 8% or 5% for vacancy for residential, like that makes sense because you can generally fill it pretty quickly. Does it ever concern you that if the bar were to leave, that might be hard to replace them?
Yes, I'm very concerned. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with it. But no, I'm concerned. We attempt to keep them happy. To give you an example, I think it was one during COVID. There was a time where people couldn't come into the bars, and they had this low rate. And probably for 2 months, I just basically told him not to worry about rent. So I covered his rent for that 2-month time period because, again, you want to keep them happy. And I think that we negotiated a longer lease eventually as well. So, I mean, I want to keep them happy, but yeah, it does concern me that, it could take a while to fill an entire bar.
Yeah. All right. And then let's talk about your Airbnb. So you have an Airbnb in Atlanta. Tell me about this. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I wanted to move to Atlanta, and I initially wasn't thinking about an Airbnb. I just wanted to get a really, really nice house. So I was basically buying what I considered at the time my dream house, and it cost $1.7 million. And I got really, really lucky because when I got the property, people bid it higher than me, but I just so happened to go and meet the property owner, and I got it at a really good deal, $1.7 million. And I was still lived in St. Louis, which is where I live currently right now. And I said, well, I'm not going to really be able to be there. And it was, almost $10,000 a month, $9,850 a month if you include the mortgage, the property insurance. And I said, I wonder what would happen if I rent it out. So I inquired to one of my friends who does a ton of Airbnb. I said, what should I do? He said, well, you should rent it out. And I said, well, who's going to pay to rent this big property? He said, you would be surprised. So we set the rates for $2,000 if it's during the week and $3,000 if it's during the weekend. And on average, it was filled for 12 days out of the month, sometimes as high as 15 days out of the month. And if you do the math on that, 12 days on average, 2,500 comes out to be $30,000. $30,000 minus the $10,000 for the mortgage, for, property and insurance, $20,000 net profit. So on average, I was making between $15,000 to $20,000, and I wasn't living there. So I stayed in St. Louis a little bit while. So if I could make $15,000 to $20,000 a month renting out this property, I think I'll just keep renting this out for a while and see how long this lasts.
All right, so you've got $20,000 a month, which is incredible, but I'm sure there's some other expenses there, right? Like, do you have? I guess you at a minimum utilities.
It was actually just built, Dan, not that long. I mean, it was actually built. It was another situation, same situation. It was built only about 3 years before, 3 years prior to that, and another divorce happened. So he was forced to sell it, and you could tell he really didn't want to sell it. It was his baby, but I hadn't had any problems. Now I did spend money, like the last few months, probably for the last 3 months. I paid about $25,000 to get the floors, epoxy on the floors to make it look really luxury, and I spent a ton of money on getting a pool. I got a world-class pool that's almost built, and that cost, shame to say, almost $300,000. So I made a $300,000 investment in the pool, $25,000 investment in the floor. So altogether, with all of the repairs that I did in the pools, probably I spent about $340,000+. Now, my thought process behind that was it's going to allow me to increase the rent even more when that's done. So if I can increase the rent even by $500 to $1,000, you do the math on that, and it's probably going to be occupied more because it's going to look even better. So if you do the math on that, it's going to pay for the repairs just off of that.
Right. And you have another Airbnb too, right?
I do. This is one I actually just bought this one. This was a house that I bought. So my sister actually leased the house, and when I saw the house, I was like, "Oh my God, this is perfect," because there was no houses next to the right or to the left. It was like a parking lot right across the street. It was like perfect. It was quiet. It was peaceful. Only problem is it was in a flood zone, so nobody wanted to necessarily buy it. But it was a perfect house. It was on a hill. Everything was great about it. So I didn't want to live in it or rent it out where somebody lived in it. But I said for an Airbnb, it's perfect. So with that being said, that house was about $210,000 to purchase it. My sister was renting it out for about $2,500 a month, and I said I can rent it out for $2,500 a month, or this thing will rent out for about maybe $200 to $250 per day. I think it's going to add up to be a lot more if I rent it out on Airbnb. Now, I haven't started renting that out yet. My sister actually has just moved out of that house, but I have a lot of hopes for that one.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that works out because, that's definitely a different market than the luxury house in Atlanta.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how everything works out. So after being involved with Airbnb, after being involved with turnkey and the mixed use, do you have a favorite type of property to own?
So ironically enough, I think the Airbnb, of course, is the favorite because of the cash flow that it produces. I love that one the most because I mean that's crazy. I'm actually thinking about how can I take this around certain parts of the country and do this, 7 or 8 different times. And, if I can on average get $20,000 a month on 10 different luxury spots, I mean that's $200,000 a month cash flow.
Yeah,
that's $2.4 billion. With just 10 homes. So that's my ultimate goal.
Marvin is hosting a 5-day virtual event where he teaches his wealth building strategies. If you want to find out more, I've got a link to his website on my website. You can find that at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 380. If Marvin inspired you and you're ready to buy your first rental property or you want to grow your portfolio, it's really important to have a game plan in place. You don't want to just randomly buy rental properties. You want to have a roadmap to get to where you're trying to go. And our sponsor, Chaley Ridge, will actually help you with this. She's an experienced investor. She's worked with thousands of investors, and she can take all that knowledge and help you get to where it is that you want to go. She does this totally free. She really wants to help you and help you get to whatever income level that you want to get to. If you want to find out more, just reach out to Chaley. You can find her at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE, lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Make sure you hit that follow button, and you'll be notified every single Tuesday when we put out a brand new episode. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.